Strength is easy. Control is rare. Most people will never understand the difference, and that single misunderstanding will cost them everything. You have seen it. A man loses his temper in traffic, and in 30 seconds, he destroys an hour of mental clarity. A person gets one piece of bad news, and they spiral for days. Someone says the wrong thing to them, and they react before a single thought crosses their mind. They believe they are strong because they are loud. They believe power lives in aggression, in reaction, in the ability to strike back fast and hit hard. But here is the truth no one wants to tell you. That is not power. That is weakness dressed up in a costume. Real power is invisible. Real power is cold. Real power is the man in the room who says nothing, watches everything, and moves only when the moment is exactly right. Real power is not what you do when things are easy. Real power is what you do when everything in you is screaming to react and you choose not to. That is where most people fail. Not in the big moments. Not in the dramatic tests of character. They fail in the quiet ones. The moments where no one is watching. The moment where an impulse rises and it would be so easy, so satisfying to just give in. And they do every single time. They give in. Think about the last time you reacted emotionally to something that did not deserve your energy. Think about the last time you said something in anger that you wished, the moment it left your mouth, you could pull back. Think about the last time you chased something that felt good in the moment and woke up the next morning feeling emptier than before. That is not you being passionate. That is not you being authentic. That is you being controlled by your own impulses rather than by your own will. And when your impulses control you, you are not free. You are a prisoner of your own mind. Impulsiveness is the great destroyer. It destroys relationships not through one dramatic betrayal, but through 100 small moments where a word should have been held back and wasn't. It destroys progress not because the goal was wrong, but because the moment felt uncomfortable and you looked for the exit. It destroys opportunities not because they were not there, but because your emotional state in that single moment made the wrong decision look like the only decision. Most people blame the world for their outcomes. Most people point outward. They say the timing was wrong. They say the people around them failed them. They say circumstance was against them. And sometimes that is true. Sometimes life is genuinely unfair. But here is what is also true. A man who cannot control his emotional reactions will find enemies everywhere. A man who cannot delay gratification will find that every gain slowly dissolves in his hands. A man who speaks before he thinks will eventually say the one thing he cannot take back in the room where it costs him the most. The world will always test you. It has no obligation to be kind. The question is never whether the test will come. The question is whether you will be ready when it does. Self-control is not about suppression. Let that be understood. It is not about burying your emotions in a dark place and pretending they do not exist. That is not discipline. That is denial. And denial always comes back. It always surfaces, usually at the worst possible moment. Self-control is awareness. It is the quiet, clear-eyed recognition of what you are feeling and the conscious, deliberate choice of what to do with it. It is standing at the edge of a reaction, looking down into it, and deciding that your long-term vision is worth more than this short-term release. Every single time. That takes practice. It takes failure. It takes sitting in discomfort and not moving. It takes watching others react and choosing, silently, to remain still. It is one of the most difficult things a human being can train, and it is the most powerful. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire the ancient world had ever seen. He had the authority to do nearly anything, and the core of his philosophy was not the accumulation of power. It was the discipline of self-governance. He wrote to himself, Not to the public, not to impress anyone. He wrote reminders that the only domain he truly controlled was himself. His perceptions, his responses, his values. Not the empire, not the wars, not the Senate. Himself. That is extraordinary. A man at the absolute pinnacle of external power, spending the quiet hours of his life reminding himself to master what was within, because he understood what most people still do not. External power is fragile. It can be taken. It shifts with circumstance. It rises and falls with the opinions of others and the chaos of the world. But internal power, the ability to govern your own mind with precision and calm, that cannot be taken. That is yours. Completely and permanently yours. So what does true self-mastery look like in practice? It looks like silence. When silence is the strongest response. Most people cannot tolerate silence. When they are challenged, they fill the space immediately. They explain, they justify, they defend. But the man who has mastered himself knows that silence can be a wall no argument can penetrate. He knows that stillness communicates something that words often cannot. He chooses silence not out of weakness, but because he understands that the person who controls the pace of a conversation controls the conversation itself. It looks like patience when patience is the most difficult choice. Patience is not passive. Do not confuse the two. Patience is active endurance. It is the daily discipline of working towards something long-term without demanding that the results appear on your timeline. The world rewards impatience with mediocrity. It rewards the quick fix with the quick collapse. But the person who is willing to be patient, to stay consistent when consistency feels pointless, that person builds something that cannot be knocked down easily. Champions are not made in the moment of victory. They are made in 10,000 quiet moments of choosing to continue when everything said stop. It looks like emotional awareness under pressure. Picture two men. Both receive the same devastating news. The first man's face changes immediately. His shoulders tighten. His voice rises. He begins making decisions from inside the panic. He calls people he should not call. He says things he cannot unsay. He makes moves driven entirely by the heat of the moment. He may even feel righteous about it. He may call it being real, being direct, being someone who does not hold back. But watch what happens to him 3 months later. The relationship is damaged. The opportunity is gone. The reputation he spent years building has a crack in it that people remember. The second man receives the same news. Something moves through him. The same weight. The same sting. He is not made of stone. But he pauses. He breathes slowly. He does not perform the stillness. He earns it. He waits until the first wave passes. He asks himself the right questions before he acts. What matters here? What is worth my energy? What will I wish I had done when I look back on this moment from a year from now? And then he moves, deliberately, precisely, without the residue of reaction clouding his judgment. That second man is not cold. He is not unfeeling. He is not dead inside. He is simply operating from a level of self-mastery that most people have never accessed. And the outcome of his choices reflects that difference every single time. Discipline is not punishment. That is another thing the world gets wrong. People think discipline means denying yourself things, waking up before you want to, saying no when your body says yes. They experience it as restriction, as a kind of ongoing deprivation. And so they resist it, they bargain with it, they practice it inconsistently, and wonder why it does not work. But discipline is not a cage. Discipline is architecture. It is the structure you build around yourself that allows you to become the person you are trying to become. Without it, life is just a series of reactions. One impulse following another, days passing without direction, years building toward nothing in particular, because in every individual moment, the easier thing was chosen. And then there is this. The way you carry yourself when no one is watching. That is the real test. Not the moments when you know you are being observed. Not the performances you give when the audience is present. Any person can appear disciplined for an audience. Any person can hold themselves together when the stakes are visible and the eyes are on them. But who are you at 11 at night when the discipline feels pointless? Who are you in the conversation that no one will ever hear about? Who are you when you are given the easy path and the hard path and no one will know which one you chose? The answer to those questions is who you actually are, not the version you present, not the identity you have constructed for others. The real you is revealed in the moments of zero accountability. The strongest men in the world are not the ones who win the most visible battles. They are the ones who have fought the most invisible ones. The ones who have sat with temptation and said no quietly. The ones who have felt rage and chose to transform it into something useful. The ones who have been hurt and chose not to become the person who hurt them. Those victories leave no mark that others can see. But they accumulate into something profound. They accumulate into character. And character, built over years of invisible discipline, produces a life that cannot be faked. People will feel it when they are near someone who has truly mastered themselves. They cannot always name it, but there is a quality of presence. A calm that does not need to perform itself. A confidence that does not require validation from the room. A stillness that makes other people settle, because something in them recognizes it as real, as earned. That is the final word on power. Not the loudest voice, not the most aggressive stance, not the fastest reaction, or the most cutting remark. The final word on power is this: the man who controls himself controls everything that truly matters. He controls his direction, he controls his growth. He controls his response to a world that will never fully cooperate with his plans. He controls who he becomes over time. And who you become over time is the only thing you will carry out of every situation you will ever face. Most people will read this and feel it deeply for a moment. And then the impulse will come. The small one, the familiar one, the one they have given in to 100 times before. And in that moment, everything in this comes down to a single, quiet decision. Will you be the one who masters himself, or the one who is mastered? That decision is yours. It will always be yours, and it will be made not once, not in some dramatic defining moment. It will be made today, and tomorrow, and every day after that. In the small moments, in the invisible ones, in the spaces between stimulus and response where your entire character lives. Control yourself there, and you will be unstoppable everywhere. Comment below: I control myself.